Эдриан, во время вашего тренинга по работе с детьми в семейной медиации мы много внимания уделили вопросу прямого консультирования детей в процессе семейной медиации. Могли бы вы рассказать для наших семейных медиаторов, насколько это важный, сложный и необходимый процесс семейной медиации?
I think it's vitally important. There are certain cases that almost scream out for child consultation. I'll give an example here. There are many situations where the clients are way apart emotionally. They're in a very, very high conflict situation. And in fairness to the clients, they're trying to deal with their own hurt, their own anger, their own emotion. And in doing so, they often lose the focus of their child. And the role of the child consultant is to get alongside the child so that the child has a very, very clear voice, and that what the child feels is important for their parents to hear can be fed back to the parents in a session where there is an absolute emphasis on what the child's experiences are and what the child's hopes and concerns may be. My experience is it can galvanise parents and makes them realise that they have lost their own parenting focus in many ways, partly because they're dealing with their hurt, their anger, as I mentioned. And it's not for the child consultant to berate the parents. It's recognising that they're in a bad place. But the parents can then hear what it is that their child's going through. And my experiences are that the parents are often somewhat shocked at what they're hearing. If I give an example of a situation, and that is where a young lad who was 14 years old actually explained to me in a confidential session, and I always assure the child that what is being discussed is confidential between myself as a child consultant and that child, and I will only feed back exactly what that child or young person, perhaps I should say, wishes me to do. And in this particular example, the 14-year-old made it clear that he loved both of his parents, but he had a deep bond of affection with his mother, who he'd been residing with for a number of years. The father he hadn't seen for a few years. And the reason he hadn't seen the father was the father had let him down on many occasions in the past. What came out of the discussion was that the son said, "I need my father to help me become the man I need to be. I need my father's guidance. I need his spiritual guidance as much as anything, because I wish to go to the religious house that my father attends. At the moment I go to another religious house with an uncle, but I crave for the day that I can be with my father as well." He also wanted me to report back to his mother that he didn't really wish to be reminded on a weekly basis how awful his father had been to his mother. He had witnessed as a young boy his mother being thrown down the stairs by the father and suffering quite horrific injuries. She was now physically healed, quite likely still mentally scarred, emotionally scarred. And what he said, he thought it through very carefully, that if his father could initiate contact by writing him a letter and then starting to have some telephone conversations with him over a period of weeks and then months, and if he felt the father was upholding that, then he felt he would be in a position to move forward and giving his father another chance to actually start meeting him. He wished me to feed that back, and the father acknowledged the number of times he'd let his son down, and he had huge impact when he realised he wasn't providing his son with the spiritual and emotional guidance he needed. The son also balanced it by saying, but as much as I love my mother and she's always been there for me, I would like her to understand that I don't wish to keep being reminded of this awful hurt. The images will never go from my mind, but I don't really want her just to keep reminding me, because sometimes I feel it may also be getting in the way of me trying my part, that's the young lad's part, of getting to know his father. And when I fed that back to both of them, I fed back to the father first. As I say, the father acknowledged and said he was willing to go along with the structure and the process that his son would like. When I fed back to his mother, she actually screamed. And she said, oh my gosh, I have been a terrible mother. And I said, you haven't been a terrible mother. He's just saying this is what he'd like, not to be reminded. And she thought about it and acknowledged, hadn't quite realised the impact that had been having. 6 months later, the mediator in the particular case, because the consultation had been contracted out, reported that the father had done just as the son had requested, and was now having contact, and it was going well. And the mother no longer verbally reminded the son of her awful experience.